Good morning. I'm very happy to be here today to present on family-centered early intervention, the Colorado model for intervention follow-through. I wanted to bring your attention first to two publications by the World Health Organization, a call to action in the World Report on Hearing 2021, and the WHO published recommendations on maternal and newborn care for a positive postnatal experience, published in 2023. Recommendation 27 calls for the global implementation of universal newborn hearing screening, and it emphasizes the need to integrate ear and hearing services into health systems and to base service development on evidence-based practice. Now, the implementation of universal newborn hearing screening is not just about hearing screening. And here is a figure developed to demonstrate that at the center and the reason for the establishment and implementation of early hearing detection and intervention systems is for integrated care for the children and their families. And what you'll notice on the middle circles is that there are a number of them, 7, and each of them are equal. So what you see in the green is hearing screening. Then you can see audiology, diagnostic evaluation, and management. The medical diagnostic evaluation and management, amplification, early intervention, family-to-family support, and deaf and hard of hearing leaders. And the circle around all of that are the data management supporting each integral segment of care. Now, in the implementation of early hearing detection and intervention, or EDI systems, globally, the primary focus has been on hearing screening, sadly, sometimes neglecting many of the other important categories that need to be implemented in order to have a fully functioning system. Typically, hearing screening, audiology diagnostic evaluation and management, medical diagnostic evaluation and management, and amplification are the primary areas of focus. But sadly, what that means is early intervention, family-to-family support, and deaf and hard of hearing leaders are absent in some of the programs. I just wanted to bring your attention to a publication that has just been published by Carger Publication. It is a fast fact on early hearing detection and intervention. You can see that there are 13 different articles here, and they focus on things like the rationale and efficacy of universal newborn hearing screening, but also on early intervention as well as special populations. So I would highly recommend that you look at this publication, which can either be ordered in hard copy or downloaded for free. There's also an international consensus on family-centered early intervention for children who are deaf or hard of hearing. That is being managed predominantly by Mary Pat Moeller, Amy Zarkowski, Elaine Gale, Trudy Smith, Bianca Birdsley, and Sheila Moody. And I have been very privileged to be a part of this. These series of articles will be published in a special edition of the Journal of Deaf Studies and Deaf Education. And it is an update to the article that was published in 2013. We anticipate that the projected publication will be in April 2023. This special edition will have an introduction. We'll talk about the guiding values, global and cultural implications, the methods for the study, which was a Delphi study, foundation principles, support principles, structure principles. It will provide resources and a call to action. So in all, there will be 9 different articles. Also, under review from the Coalition for Global Hearing Healthcare Pathways Working Group are guidelines for clinical guidance for readiness and development of evidence-based early hearing detection and intervention programs. So part of that recommended practice is that every program, whether they're basic or advanced, looks at what is currently available in their system. And because I'm speaking to parents, I'm going to talk specifically about the early intervention services, as well as the family-to-family support. So it's very important to look at what is working well and what is not working yet. What are the barriers and challenges? And what do you want your early intervention system to eventually look like? So as I promised, I was going to talk about the Colorado model. In this model, one of the glues to the system is what we call the CoHear coordinator system. Now there are, I believe in the regions as they get larger and larger, keep expanding, but there are, I believe, 11 Colorado hearing coordinators, all located regionally. They are the first early intervention contact. All of the co-hearers are highly experienced early intervention providers. They are locally available. They are our first early intervention contact. They are the first contact that audiology makes after the diagnosis of or confirmation that the child is deaf or hard of hearing. The co-hearers coordinate with the medical home. Audiology also contacts the medical home. They coordinated with the educational system and the local educational agency. They coordinate with the health database and with all available early intervention programs for children who are deaf or hard of hearing, whether they're public or they're private. Now, one of the very important aspects of a fully functioning EDI program is assuring quality outcomes. Diagnosis, amplification, and enrollment in intervention. And we call this the EDI 136 rule. So it's very important that the audiologists provide information to a data management system for aggressive tracking from the screening to assessment to amplification and intervention. It's also important for the early intervention to provide information to the data management system. And that all of the services follow best practice for screening, diagnosis, and early intervention guidelines. So the qualified audiologists have to have skills for newborns. And in many large systems, having centers of excellence where the hospital program that has the diagnostic facility sees a large quantity of families and children. That having a large center of excellence helps us manage and assure that there's complete and accurate information for families. In Colorado, they also integrate with the family-to-family support network, which is part of our early intervention system. They also interact with our deaf, hard of hearing leaders and our mentors. And they are an important aspect for data management. This system, the audiology system, is in direct contact with our co-hear case manager. Now, what does the Colorado Hearing Coordinator do? Now, this hearing coordinator is likely to be a teacher of the deaf or a speech language pathologist with expertise in early intervention, or could be an audiologist, but only if they're trained in early intervention services. They will explain to the parents the screening results, the diagnostic evaluation results, what all of the terminology means, type and degree of hearing loss. They are knowledgeable about questions related to etiology or the cause of the deafness, and they're knowledgeable about amplification, including pricing and funding potential. Remember again, the co-hearer is contacted by the audiologist before the family even leaves the appointment, and the families have given permission at that appointment for the Colorado Hearing Coordinator to contact the families and to begin to provide this information. The Colorado co-hearer provides immediate availability of counseling services because they are providers with in-depth knowledge about hearing loss, research, screening, testing, etiology, amplification, and intervention. This can begin at diagnosis. For example, in the system, in our Center for Excellence in Colorado, that sees about 80% of our families. Most of the families will receive immediate counseling from a professional who is deaf at the hospital immediately after diagnosis. So the children receive the audiologic diagnostic evaluation. This evaluation could be conducted by an audiologist who is also deaf. But after the diagnosis, the audiologist will walk the family down to the counselor who is deaf. And the counselor will sit with that family probably on average for about an hour before the family is ready to leave the appointment, and can answer the family's questions about the disability, what kind of services are available to them, what kinds of questions they might have that the diagnosis has brought up. They're our first beginning step for helping the family in their grieving process and helping them understand what having a child who is deaf or hard of hearing means. They also have now the Colorado Hearing Coordinator is the person who contacts the family usually by text or email or phone and provides initial counseling. So the parents don't have to seek out anything. They get the contact directly. These co-hearer managers have in-depth knowledge about methods of communication. They can demonstrate them to the family. They can answer all of the questions to the family. They begin initial intervention before the family is ready to enroll in their chosen early intervention program. So they have skills in auditory skill development, listening and spoken language, and they also have skills in sign language communication. They have in-depth knowledge about communication and language development, symbolic play, social emotional development, parent-child intervention. But their very first goal is to help the family return to that social emotional place that they were when the child was born, the joy of the child's birth, and being able to track the child's milestones. The co-hearer's knowledge about parent-centered early intervention for infants and children specific to hearing loss. They have knowledge about normal development, knowledge about research on early and later identified children with hearing loss, and in-depth knowledge about curriculums designed for children with hearing loss and their families. The early intervention providers that they connect the families to are through both predominantly the public system, but they can also do that with the private system. The public system is available to every family who lives in the state of Colorado. It is free for all families, regardless of income. The early intervention providers have been strategically picked. They have received intensive training specific to early intervention for children who are deaf and hard of hearing and their families. And they get ongoing training provided by the coheres through a variety of different training options. The early intervention provider is local, within a 1-hour commute of every home in Colorado. We have anywhere between 120 to 150 providers serving about 270 children and families in the system between the ages of birth through 3 years of age. And this system is actually a voluntary participation by the local educational agencies. There's no mandate, but this system was formed in the early 1970s and has existed as a voluntary option for each of the local educational agencies in the state of Colorado. We also do a free assessment for the families that has existed since the early 1980s. This is conducted through the Colorado cohere in conjunction with the early intervention provider. It's designed with parent-infant input to protect funding for early intervention in hearing loss. It's designed to provide meaningful and useful information to improve intervention and to objectify information delivery to parents. It also provides state norms that are de-identified, and it's designed for quality assurance and for program improvement. The parents can participate every 6 months. It's a highly detailed and developmentally intensive assessment, which is composed of parent questionnaires, videotaped interaction, and also videotaped interaction analysis. Provides the families with overall developmental information on cognitive, gross and fine motor, self-help, personal social, receptive and expressive language, general development, vocabulary development, emotional development, parental stress, speech development, auditory development, maternal bonding, parent and child pragmatic language. The parents receive the reports and may choose to compare their child with themselves from time 1 to time 2 with other children who have normal hearing through the standardized norms, or with deaf and hard of hearing children who have similar characteristics through the state norms, and now it's actually over thousands. We have over 2,000 deaf and hard of hearing infants and toddlers on the state database, but we also have 4,000 to 5,000 assessments on children who live all over the United States. Now, a very important component is the family-to-family support provided by our Colorado Families for Hands and Voices. There is an international organization called the Global Parents of Deaf and Hard of Hearing Children. But I would say that the Hands and Voices organization in the United States was one of the earliest family-to-family supports. There are chapters all throughout Canada as well as the United States, and we have a Kenya chapter. On the website provided here, there is all kinds of information for parents. This organization is a parent support organization, provides advocacy, is parent-led, parent-centered, involved and directed, and it's parent-to-parent. It's systematized. It has statewide coordinators as well as regional coordinators, and I do recommend that you go to the website, both the GPOD website as well as the Hands and Voices website. Hands and Voices provides parent-to-parent support and training, parent advocacy and education seminars, professional in-service, and pre-service training, a newspaper that's published monthly, a website that is filled with resources. Hands and Voices is represented on state committees and boards as well as federal committees and boards. They have a first visit to newly identified families guide. They're focused on not only infancy, but all the way through up to adulthood. So they have been involved in deaf education reform, the Deaf Child's Bill of Rights, birth through 3 services, least restrictive environments in the school age, individual education plan process for children 4 to 21, social emotional health, hearing aid and other funding, early hearing detection and intervention, the medical home, legislation, systems change, communication access, and so much more. Here again is their website. Again, almost every U.S. state has a chapter. What's probably unique about the Hands and Voices is that in order to have a chapter, the state funding system has to participate with the Hands and Voices chapter and provide funding. So for example, with our Colorado system, when the when the Colorado co-hear makes the first family visit, they will bring with them the Hands and Voices family to family support leader who has been trained in that region to the first session, so that the parents can become knowledgeable about what is available for family to family support. Now, on a global level, we have what's called the Deaf Leader International Alliance, and there also is this website that's available for you called the LIA Connect, DLIACONNECT. And on this website, you'll find information about deaf connections and role models, deaf hard of hearing sign language instructors, deaf hard of hearing representation on advisory boards that establish and create the EDI systems, deaf hard of hearing participation in language and communication assessment, deaf hard of hearing training of professionals, their partnerships with parents, and partnerships in research. Also on my website, the Marian Down Center Research.net, so mdcresearch.net. At the top, you will see deaf hard of hearing leadership in the black bar, I believe, on the first page of the website. If you go there, it will give you information about deaf hard of hearing leadership in the United States. And one of the things I want you to remember that I spoke about in the beginning is that in Colorado, we have deaf and hard of hearing leaders infused throughout our entire system. There are physicians who are deaf and hard of hearing, audiologists who are deaf and hard of hearing, speech and language pathologists who are deaf and hard of hearing, teachers of the deaf who are deaf and hard of hearing, co-hearers who are deaf and hard of hearing. We have sign language instructors who are deaf and hard of hearing. We have deaf and hard of hearing mentors for children from birth through 18 years of age. And it is a very, very robust system. Excuse me. The early intervention program that's provided for free to all families in the state of Colorado is home-based. So the early intervention providers go to the home. It's parent-centered or family-centered. So the goal is for providing support and education to the parents and family. It occurs once per week for an hour to an hour and a half, and the primary providers are either teachers of the deaf, speech and language pathologists, or audiologists who are oral rehabilitation. Almost all of them have master's degrees. Originally, this system had no full-time staff. And by this, I mean the Colorado Cohere system. Um, the early intervention providers are predominantly full-time staff, but they're paid by their local educational agency, and some of them only see children who are deaf and hard of hearing. Some of them see a wide variety of children with many disabilities, but they're specifically trained for services in early intervention for families who have children who are deaf or hard of hearing. When the Coheres were moved from the Department of Health to the Department of Education, they did provide funding for a full-time coordinator. In the beginning, our funding per year for a child averaged about $3,000 per child for many years. And I don't believe that it has been increased much, even though the system has existed for decades. The curriculum is driven by the family assessment, which is the assessment I told you is done every 6 months. Now we also have, and this is all in development, but we're looking at quality indicators of early intervention services. This is our most well-developed one, and this is called Listening to Learn. It focuses on listening and spoken language development. And basically, it's monitoring the skills and knowledge of the early intervention provider themselves. We have been talking about developing something actually for families, but it's not yet, that hasn't yet been developed. And that would probably be devoted to what are you learning in your early intervention services? Have you learned this from your early intervention providers? Now, the quality of the early intervention is monitored by our coheres, who can counsel our early intervention providers, as well as they could sit in or be in on the sessions through telehealth. We also have resources for families by language. And if you again go to the mdcresearch.net website, you'll see the multicultural resource button. And that provides language information for parents in about 20 to 25 languages, for providers, and a lot of information about the countries that people come from, because it's not only the languages, countries have different cultural practices. And one of the things about this website, because we have so many families who come to us speaking Spanish in the home, that there is quite a bit of information in Spanish, but it tends to be, because of our population in the United States, mainly from Mexico and from Central America. Now, why have we created these kinds of systems? And what is the reward for having high quality early intervention systems? We've recently completed a study that was published in 2021 looking at children in our very high risk urban area in Colorado, very high poverty. One of the most interesting aspects is that the findings from this show that all of the children, regardless of the ones who are in poverty, have some mild, moderate secondary disabilities, do not speak English in the home, because English is our instructional language, make significant gains by grade and by birth year. And by birth year, we're looking at the year at which we began to implement universal newborn hearing screening until it was fully implemented across the state. What we found is that the children who were not in poverty in this school district in Colorado, that by the time we had almost fully implemented universal newborn hearing screening, so that most of the children from 3rd through 10th grade had been born in the state after we implemented universal newborn hearing screening. What we found is that 70.5% of the children enrolled in 3rd through 10th grade achieved proficient or advanced reading comprehension in English on their annual testing. It included children from non-English speaking homes, children with some secondary disabilities in which hearing loss was the primary disability. 25% of the children were partially proficient, but they were getting better and better with each grade in school, and only 4.5% were unsatisfactory. Here's the graph that shows that the blue bars and the yellow bars are increasing dramatically from the year 2000 to 2013. And the orange bars, which were unsatisfactory, have decreased dramatically. So that in 2013, it's about 30% of the population who are unsatisfactory. When we include all children, poverty tends to be the primary negative variable influence on reading comprehension. So here again is the children at the bottom who were not eligible for free and reduced lunch, and you can see that almost all of them are in the blue or yellow range. And the children who were eligible have all made gains, not quite as dramatically as the children who were never eligible for free and reduced lunch. Now, I want to go back a little bit to the Coalition of Global Hearing Health. I don't have time to go over these PowerPoints with you today in our half an hour time period, but I can send these so that you can see what is recommended for how to begin early intervention services, and for services that already exist, like they exist in Spain in some areas, how to improve them so that there's equitable access. So thank you again for your attention and for inviting me to present to you. I hope you have a wonderful conference.
Como no podíamos hacerle preguntas directamente, le pasamos 2 preguntas a Christine Yoshinaga y nos las ha contestado en un vídeo que nos ponen ahora.
First question, how important is the role of associations in the early care program for deaf children? The family-to-family support network organized by Hands and Voices is critical to the early intervention program. At the first visit with early intervention, with the co-hear coordinator, a trained parent leader from Hands and Voices visits the family and explains to the family all of the resources that are available and all of the opportunities they have to get involved. They provide contact information so that the family can get in touch with them whenever they want, and they ask the family what support they want now. For example, meeting with another child who has a family who has a child similar to theirs, talking with an older child who has a hearing loss similar to their infants, or just signing up for the monthly, quarterly newsletter so that they can find out about events that they might want to attend. Having a parent leader accompany them to an appointment, explaining things during the process. These are all supports provided by the family-to-family network. Family representatives are now required at all state universal newborn hearing screening, early hearing detection and intervention advisory boards. We have 50 different states and a number of different territories. So they all help with decisions on policies and procedures. Parents do developmental assessments every 6 months through parent questionnaires. So they're basically doing the evaluation themselves. The early intervention programs are family-centered, so the professional takes the lead from the parents and families. The second question, do the associations participate in the organization of early literacy program activities? So our literacy program includes a book bag of books that are left with their parents. It includes teaching goals for the early intervention provider to help the parent identify language, auditory, and speech goals by using the stories. It also includes teaching goals for the sign language instructor. If the family is also receiving services from the sign language instructor, who may be teaching them how to sign the books, while the other provider is teaching them how to use spoken language with the books. I have given Jose some of the books that we have. We have a Spanish language book bag. So in it are some examples of the provider goals that go with the book, as well as the sign language instructor's goals. And he can share that with you. We have, I believe, about 16 different books that are different examples for our Spanish-speaking families, and I'm happy to share any of those with you. Thank you very much.
Bueno, yo creo que en 30 minutos no se puede decir más, ¿no? Realmente definir un programa de atención temprana tan complejo como el que tienen, bueno, pues provoca que la presentación sea quizá un poco difícil de seguir, porque además es en inglés y porque nos transmite no solamente gran parte de la estructura que tiene, sino también tiene ganas de transmitirnos toda la información que tienen, que es muchísima. La información la podemos, os la podemos pasar, porque bueno, los libros que dice que me ha pasado, pues los podemos descargar. Tengo la dirección. También tengo la página web suya también para descargar cantidad de información. Su libro, que realmente se puede descargar, ya lo he comprobado. O sea que nos pasa muchísima información que podemos transmitiros, ¿no? Por otro lado, como quizá es un poquito denso, o seguro que es un poquito denso, pues me atrevo a hacer un resumen que seguro que si lo ve Cristín, pues igual no está de acuerdo, pero yo creo que está bien comentar algunos aspectos, ¿no? Por un lado, ese personaje, ese elemento principal que articula el programa, que llaman co-hear, que no sé realmente por qué lo llaman así, pero bueno, que coordina y está presente continuamente, ¿no? Coordina, acompaña, informa, y ya veis que continuamente dice que está perfectamente entrenado, que tiene un conocimiento de la audiología y del desarrollo y de la atención temprana del niño sordo impresionante, ¿no? Y va repartiendo esa información pues, por los diferentes programas de atención temprana, privados o públicos, ¿no? Habla también de la importancia de las asociaciones de padres, que en este caso principalmente y sobre todo la que empieza es la de Hands and Voices, que es curiosamente una apuesta que hacen en el estado de Colorado, yo creo que en 1995, un poco más tarde, en el que se unen las asociaciones signantes y las asociaciones oralistas para trabajar en común y crear una asociación sin una dirección única en cuanto a modelos de comunicación, ¿no? Es interesante también la norma de calidad 136, que destaca en algún momento, que significa al mes detectado, a los 3 meses identificado, que significa también con su audífono y a los 6 meses ya incorporado a los programas de atención temprana. Eso como objetivo general, pero en muchos momentos están pasando al objetivo de 1, 2, 3, que son 3 meses con todo ya en marcha. La intervención, el audífono. Me parece importante también destacar la intervención. Dice que los diferentes profesionales, dependiendo de la opción por la que opte la familia, visitan 1 hora, hora y media a la semana, ¿no? Bueno, eso es increíble, estupendo. También destaca una cosa que a mí me parece impresionante, que tiene que ver con qué efectos tiene un programa de atención temprana de larga evolución. Y es que gran parte de los profesionales son sordos. Quiere decir que han nacido en un entorno que les ha permitido superar barreras y formarse en las carreras que han querido, audiólogo, médico, profesor de sordos. Y gran parte de los profesionales van a ser sordos, ¿no? O sea que eso significa bueno, romper barreras respecto a cómo se van a acercar a las familias, pero también significa éxito del programa, ¿no? Continuamente habla de formación intensiva en prácticas específicas de atención temprana del niño sordo y, por otro lado, habla en varias ocasiones del sistema de evaluación, que no solamente es de resultados en general de los niños, la media, a la que llegan, sino que la evaluación, esa evaluación que hacen cada 6 meses con los padres, se centra en la evaluación caso a caso también. Cada niño es evaluado a ver si el resultado está siendo eficaz, no solamente en general del programa, sino en cada caso particular. Bueno, yo creo que tenemos un programa aquí, un modelo, que no tenemos que inventarnos casi nada, sería más bien adaptarlo, ¿no? Pues bien, esto es todo.
Hola, ahora sí. Bueno, ha sido intenso. Yo creo que nos ha resonado mucho a cada uno. A las profesionales que trabajamos en las asociaciones, seguro que hemos dicho eso lo hacemos allí. A las familias, seguro que alguna ha dicho eso también me lo han dicho a mí. A las administraciones también habrán dicho eso también lo hacemos nosotros. Pero yo creo que falta ese empujón y esa coordinación que Reyes nos decía. Pero bueno, no vamos a ir adelantando. Vamos a ir asimilando todo lo que íbamos recogiendo en esta interesante jornada. Entonces ha llegado el momento de tomar un descanso y conocernos un poco en el café, que me dicen mis compañeras que tenemos que salir a la izquierda, la pasarela esta que hay aquí, luego a la izquierda seguimos el caminito, así que habrá que coger la cazadora y... ¿Vale? Venga, hasta ahora.